Mayor and council members, you are live on YouTube and it is 5 o'clock.
Okay, thank you. Welcome everyone to tonight, Thursday, October 7th, 2021, to a virtual special meeting of the Livermore City Council, 5 o'clock. And we're here to continue our deliberations on the membership of our General Plan Advisory Committee. So I would like to call the meeting to order. I should also say the ways to participate are at the end of in the agenda packet, and I'll have the city clerk repeat how to participate when we get to the public comment period. So could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Bonanno.
Here.
Councilmember Carling.
Here.
Councilmember Kick.
Here.
Councilmember Monroe.
Here.
Mayor Warner.
Here. All right, thank you. We're going to begin with the, we have one item. It's a special workshop to interview the applicants for the General Plan Advisory Committee. The members of the public can address us on this topic, on only this topic. And City Clerk, could you explain to people how they can participate if they wish?
Yes, Mayor. When participating in this portion of tonight's meeting, one comment may be given per person regarding only the special workshop item. Members of the public can participate by using the raise hand feature or *9 if calling in when the item begins. Please do not wait until the public comment period opens for the item to raise your hand. Instead, raise your hand now. Once public comment opens, each participant's name will be announced and their 3 minutes will begin upon being unmuted. The mayor will announce the conclusion of the public comment period after comments have been voiced into the record. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, I'd like to open the public comment period on item 3.1. Do we have anybody who wishes to address us?
Mayor, no comments have been received.
Okay, I'll close the public comment on item 3.1, and we're now ready to begin our interviews. And each applicant will have a total of 15 minutes to answer 5 questions, one each from each council member. And if an applicant finishes question 3 and is over the 9-minute mark, the city clerk will let us know to help each applicant manage their times. I'll also point out that after we concluded the final set of interviews this evening, the city council will take a few minutes to discuss and finalize our process, make sure we're all on the same page before we begin our voting. So at this point, could we begin the applicants and we could start interviewing.
The first applicant is John Marchand. John Marchand, we are going to promote you to panelist. Please turn your video on and your audio.
Okay, welcome, Mr. Marchand. Good to see you this evening.
Good to see everybody again. Be back on this side of the panel.
Yeah. So I think you understand the process very well. Each of us will be asking you a question, and you've got a total of 15 minutes to answer. And Councilmember Bonanno is first up with her question.
Hi, welcome. Good evening, Mr. Marchand. Your first question is, what is the purpose of the general plan and how is it used to guide decision making?
Thank you, Councilmember Bonanno. The general plan is the blueprint. It's a long-range document to guide future development within the city. It provides a basis for orderly, sustainable development by laying out appropriate and compatible zoning and land use to meet future demands for residential, commercial, industrial uses, and open space preservation within the city. The general plan update review process offers the community and the city council an opportunity to evaluate existing policies and develop new ones that address shifts in community priorities, technologies, and current land use. It identifies future needs and demands on city services and allows the council to make the best decisions to allocate resources in the future to meet those needs.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, I've got the second question. What are the top 1 to 2 issues that need addressing in Livermore through the general plan update, in your opinion? And how are your skills a good match for the task at hand?
Only 1 or 2. Okay. Water and a range of housing. And by a range of housing, I mean housing for people that are experiencing homelessness, workforce housing, and housing all the way up to executives that are bringing in jobs and bringing industry into Livermore. It is that lack of housing that is inflating the prices of housing throughout the region. And also, it's the lack of transit that is causing the gridlock traffic throughout the region as well. I'm a good match because I spent over 30 years as a water quality chemist, 15 years as a board member for a water supply agency. I spent 15 years as a member of a wastewater disposal agency, the LAVMA, Livermore Valley Water Management Authority. I spent 9 years on the Alameda County Transportation Commission, working to fund regional transportation projects to alleviate the gridlock traffic that we have. I'm a founding member of a Joint Powers Authority, which was specifically created to stand up a new agency, a new transportation agency, Valley Link. Spent 6 years as a council member and 9 years as a mayor, working on some of the very issues that the general plan will be addressing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Marchand, and thanks for applying. Why would you be a good choice for the General Plan Update Advisory Committee, and what one word best describes what you would bring to the committee?
I have a singular skill set and experience that no one else on the committee has. I've served effectively on many regional boards, commissions, city council, and as mayor. I have worked on the last general plan review. And as far as one word, I would say meticulous. As an example, when I received the email telling me that I had been granted an interview, I immediately contacted the city clerk's office to let them know that the date that was provided on the email for the interview was the incorrect date, and that the link was to the wrong document. It was to a September 8th agenda rather than the agenda for tonight's meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
Councilmember Carling.
Well, so I actually have a follow-up to that before I ask my question. So we've all been very careful to this point in calling you Mr. Marchand, but you know,
John's fine.
well, I'm going to go a different direction slightly,
Okay.
and that is you've listed your, in the past 2 questions you've listed your experience, and there's no question that you in your experience, in that experience, you're not only experienced but you're unique, and that has some advantages and some disadvantages. And so my question is, and then I'll fold the second piece into it because I'd like you to answer both, is how would you serve the needs of the many diverse residents of this community, even if at times it may go against your personal preferences? And the other piece of that is, given the fact that you are unique, given your past history, given the fact that, you know, I got my Livermorian pin from you, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, you know, that is something that you did for years. So how are you going to balance that big presence with all the other people on the board? So there's a 2-part question in some sense, and given your uniqueness, I think it's justified.
Okay, let me answer the second question first, because I will tell you that as Mr. Spence can attest, during the first general plan community meeting that we had, there was silence when Andy Ross had asked for people's opinions, what they wanted to say. So there was silence. And as you all know, if there is silence, I will fill it. because we got a limited amount of time and there's a lot of information to cover. So I started to speak, and I got a couple sentences out, and one of the panelists accused me of trying to suck all the air out of the room and dominate the conversation. And I says, no one else spoke up. So that's when I spoke up. I can fill the information. I don't need to suck all the air out of the room. I don't need to dominate the conversation. And I have been in many, many circumstances where I allow other people. I have to, because we're in a committee environment. I have to allow other people to speak. I have to give everyone equal time. That was one of the things that I always tried to do, was to be fair on the council, so that everybody had an opportunity to speak. And so if that answers your second question, I'll answer the first one about personal preferences. As an elected official, your personal preferences are irrelevant. They should be irrelevant. You work for and vote for what is in the best interests of your constituents and all of the members of your community. You are serving those needs by listening to the different communities to find out what those needs are, and then to determine the proper allocation of resources. And that's kind of interesting that you bring this up, because serving those needs is not the purpose of this committee. The purpose of this committee is to identify those needs and put together the best information possible to recommend zoning and policy changes to meet those future needs, so that the council can take that information to make the best decisions, at the same time maintaining the quality of life for the future and for the current residents. So does that kind of answer what you needed?
Yeah, it was that answers both questions quite completely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I have the last question. And as you know, this committee is not about making the policy, but the suggestions about what to do. And that includes a lot of technical information and some communication skills to go along with that, translating that information between staff and council and the community members who have various levels of experience dealing with these kind of documents. Can you explain what would your plan be to be a good disseminator of information on this committee?
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Carrick. So I'm a chemist, and analyzing complex information and drawing the correct conclusions based upon the data has been my career. I have explained the complexities of water chemistry to elementary school children. I have frequently had to explain water quality problems to people that were angry, scared, and concerned for the health and safety of their children. I have successfully explained heavy particle physics and the creation of Livermorium to people that had no scientific background. As a mayor, it was my job to explain very complex and detailed issues frequently to very unhappy and at sometimes hostile people. I'm sure none of you have had to do that. I have talked with everyone from people who are experiencing homelessness to Nobel laureates. But everybody deserves respect as a human being, and you simply speak at the appropriate level. You don't talk down to people, but you give them the information that they need and they want in a manner that they can understand and absorb.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And
All right.
we're on to the next interviewee.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity
Okay.
tonight.
Bye.
Good night.
The next applicant is Heriberto Revuelta. Heriberto Revuelta, please unmute yourself and turn your video on. We're promoting you to panelist.
Hi, it's Heriberto.
Okay, hi, welcome. We can hear you and Mr. Vielto. And I think you know the process. We got 5 questions, 15 minutes. and one question from each of us. And the first person to give you a question is Councilmember Bonanno.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Vivietta. I don't think I said that right, but I tried. Good evening. Thank you for being here. Your first question is, what is the purpose of the general plan and how is it used to guide decision-making?
From what I've gathered, the purpose of the general plan is basically to guide, kind of, and help shape and guide our city's development. And the way it's done, it's basically through a blueprint that has some clear goals, objectives, and policies that govern how we use land, transportation, housing, open space, growth, sustainability, and all those things are, essential for building and developing a city, which is the reason why I'm so passionate about helping with this committee and having an active role in developing that, and just ensuring, that Livermore is a great city for everyone to live in.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I have the second question. What are the top 1 to 2 issues, in your opinion, that need addressing in Livermore through the general plan update? And how are your skills a good match for those issues, the task at hand?
I'm sure as we all know, there's a lot of issues, but 2 of the ones I would pick would be definitely affordability and sustainability. The reason affordability, I think, is a big issue that needs to be addressed. Like we all know, it's all in the Bay Area, California. It's expensive to live here, and Livermore is not an exception. For example, my wife and I both have doctorates, and we struggled to buy a house 2 years ago, so we're relatively new to Livermore. And if we look at the current market right now, it would almost be impossible for us to buy a home right now. We actually had to forego a wedding to be able to afford a house and put our life savings into it. So I think that's something that needs to be addressed, and have some affordable housing for, we all like to go downtown, and we all know, servers particularly, for example, don't have a great living wage. So I can only imagine how hard it is with someone with that wage to be able to buy a home. And the reason we have to be kind of really cautious about that too, I feel like, is not addressing that issue can kind of create the opposite of what we want, which is a more inclusive city, and it could actually create more what would be more of an exclusive and elitist city if only the wealthy are able to afford and buy houses, which would, like I said, create a lot of issues, and it would do the opposite of creating an inclusive and diverse city. And then as far as sustainability, I think that's important because we all want the city of Livermore to be great, not only for now, for the future, and for many generations to come. One of the reasons I'm passionate about it, like I said, I have a 9-month-old daughter whose whole education is going to be here in the city of Livermore. And it's important that, we're mindful of that, not only what's good for now, 20 years from now, but even in the future. And then as far as why I believe I would be a good match for this task, I feel I would bring a perspective of those who feel they've been marginalized with similar backgrounds as myself. But, I come with a little bit more privilege than some of those. I'm fluent in Spanish, so I would be able to help with that aspect. Even within our household, I'm aware of the different needs across the lifespans. My wife started a small business, have family members that are retiring. So I'm very cautious as they're going through that phase. Also, as their mobility is affected, kind of the accessibility needs that come with that.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, and thanks very much for applying. Why would you be a good choice for the General Plan Update Advisory Committee, and what 1 word best describes what you would bring to the committee?
So I'll start with what I think the 1 word that describes what I would bring to the community would be, and that is unity. And the reason I say that is kind of because of my experience. And tying into that, why I would be a good choice would be because, like I mentioned in the previous question, I feel I would bring a perspective and help improve the diversity of the committee. And for those that usually feel underrepresented, who don't really see themselves reflected in the city at all. And then also I have experience with dealing with diverse backgrounds, working in healthcare as a physical therapist in various roles, as a clinic manager, director of operations, and now director of training and compliance, where it's basically it's what I do on a daily basis is to assure that everyone's protected, that patients' rights are protected, not only our company. And then also, for example, I have a lot of experience dealing with disgruntled patients, people. I'm one of the people that usually that they come to try to diffuse situations. So I feel I have an ability to kind of stay calm and help with, uniting people. And then, within my family, I have experience with family members with diverse backgrounds, from different educational attainments, from elementary school education all the way to like doctor like myself. So I feel I would bring a lot of experience with those issues and help provide or attain hopefully some unity.
Thank you.
Good evening. I've got the next question, and that is, how would you serve the needs of the many diverse residents of the community? And there you can read diverse is diverse in all kinds of ways, even if at times it may go against your personal preferences.
And this is something I feel I have a lot of experience, both professionally and personally. And I think what's also important for all of us as we go through this is to keep in mind what's best, not only for ourselves, but for the city. What I would feel is good for me, or what my personal preference would be, might be different than my daughter, than my wife, and family's friends. And for example, if I'm happy with everything that's going on, but yet there's a whole bunch of other issues going on with the city, high crime or other things like that, what good is it to me if my family or me are the only happy ones with what's going on with the city? So I feel I would be aware of that. And like I said, it's usually what I do on a daily basis as a director of compliance is I look out not only for our company and what's good for our company to help avoid heavy fines for breaking healthcare laws or other contractual obligations depending on the insurances of the different patients we see. But part of my job is also to look out for what's good for the patients and making sure that patients' rights are respected, even if it goes against what one of our employees has done. So I feel I've been able to do a good job with balancing out kind of what's, goes against our personal preference versus what's, kind of ultimately the right thing. And I think also a lot of us, and I've been reflecting on it, my needs across my lifespan have been different from when I was a teenager to young adult, young professional with a family now, and then what my needs are going to be when I'm retired. So I'm very cautious or mindful of that what my preference is right now, it's not necessarily going to be the same 20, 30 years from now.
Great, thank you.
Hey, Alberto, I have a little last question, and this is a complex technical document that you will have to translate. And maybe might literally help translating into another language at some point in conversation. How will you talk about these issues with people of various levels of experience and education when it comes to things like zoning and planning?
Yes, and this is something, like said, I feel I have a lot of experience professionally too, as I try to interpret different healthcare laws, making sure that our employees are aware of, the different things we need to do and check off so we don't end up with a huge fine, but also make sure that we respect patients' privacy. And usually we disseminate that information in a couple of different mediums because, everyone has different learning styles. So that's something I would definitely want to keep in mind is, everyone learns differently. And then having said that, though, something that we try to keep in mind too is a lot of these documents, like you mentioned, are very complex. Ideally, we would want to be mindful of that and take into account different reading levels of the community. So that might be something to keep in mind as well. Someone who might have, let's say, a 6th grade reading level might not know anything that's in that document compared to someone with a higher educational achievement. And even within my family, we have people who have elementary school education all the way to graduate. And I've had into in the past, also with some of them having limited understanding of English, how to kind of interpret complex documents into Spanish. Even myself, I remember as a 7, 8-year-old having to navigate and explain complex things to my parents, which I'm sure there's a lot of that in Livermore as well. So that's how I think I would be able to contribute with providing some feedback to people in an easy to understand way who might have no idea what this document says.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. We really appreciate you going through all the effort to apply and being with us this evening. And we're now on to our next candidate.
The next candidate is John Doyle. John Doyle, please unmute yourself and turn your video on. We're promoting you to panelist.
Good evening, everybody. I think I'm on
Okay.
now.
Yes, you are. Welcome, and thanks for going to all the effort to appear before us and fill out the application. I think you know the process we're going through, 5 questions, 1 from each of us in for the 15-minute total time. And the first person with the question is Councilmember Bonanno.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Doyle. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Good evening.
What is the purpose of the general plan and how is it used to guide decision-making?
I'll get that 1 second. Thank you for the question. And one thing I wanted to point out is, first of all, to thank you for entertaining my application as an employee of Topcon Positioning Systems. I've reviewed many of the applications and watched quite a few of the videos. And I have to say that I think Livermore is in a good place right now as to this project because there's so many great applicants. One thing I want to point out at the outset is that while I work in Livermore, I'm not a resident. I'm an employee of Topcon and have 450 coworkers over on National Drive, 74 of which are residents of the city of Livermore. So as to the general plan, the government code refers to the general plan as a long-term general plan for the physical development of the city. It's a base document that charts the path for future growth. And it will include goals and objectives and policies intended to achieve those goals. I view it as representing the community's vision for growth, and it serves as the roadmap for that growth. So once it's adopted, it will be the guide for decision making, and it would be a standard against which decisions will be measured for consistency. One other thing in going through this process of considering these questions and reflecting on them is I thought of the general plan update process is really exciting and extraordinary as it allows this community to take the time in a thorough and ordered process to take a look at itself and assess itself as to where we were, where we are, and where we intend to go. And we it's just a exciting process because we're setting this map so far in the future. So the continuing vitality of Livermore and its community character is really important to me and my coworkers. We love being here, and a strong general plan is key to that vitality, which benefits us all.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, I've got the second question. What are the top 1 to 2 issues that need addressing in Livermore through this general plan update? And how are your skills a good match for those issues? Thank you.
So I think I'm echoing many of the other applicants, but the 2 that jumped out to me are affordable housing and transportation. As I mentioned a minute ago, Topcon's 450 employees on National Drive, 74 do live here. Many more would like to live here. And the availability of affordable housing is one of those issues that is raised almost on a daily basis, and it echoes concerns that I hear throughout the Tri-Valley. As a father of 3 kids, one of whom's a teacher who are reaching that stage of life where they're looking to set roots, it's frustrating to see the challenges that are faced by my kids who are, relatively privileged and come from a wonderful place like the Tri-Valley, but it's a challenge to be able to live in the same place that they grew up. Transportation is also referenced as a major issue by my workers and coworkers and friends. And at the end of the day, all this goes to community character and quality of life. Livermore is a great place to work. It has wonderful community character. The overall community character makes it a great place to work. And what it does for our team on National Drive is that it allows us to attract and retain world-class team members that want to be involved in the community. So as for the match piece, TopCon's a great match for the task at hand, as we consist of a diverse team of talented and engaged individuals that love to work and live and recreate in Livermore. We've been here since 2004. Prior to that, we were in Pleasanton. We're very proud of our community involvement and want to stay involved. We've grown with the community. We've grown with this last general plan, and we want to continue to be involved. We can bring the point of view of a business, a homegrown business that's experienced what it's like to grow in Livermore. We also have wonderful employees that at some level I'd be speaking for as a member of the committee that have ideas that would be beneficial for the program. Personally, I've been practicing law in the Tri-Valley since 1993. I've lived here all my life. Land use has been a significant part of my practice over the years. So I'm very familiar with working with general plans and the overall local government process. So I think that's what I would bring to the table personally.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, and thanks for applying. This probably sounds a little repetitive, but why would you be a good choice for the General Plan Update Advisory Committee? What one word best describes what you would bring to the committee?
This was a good question. And the one word was, it was great because it caused some reflection. My one word is advocacy. And thinking about a response, to the question, my first inclination was to say experience, but with a bit more thought, reflection, advocacy came to mind. And I believe and expect that advocacy will be a really important function for the members of the advisory committee, advocating for engagement and participation from all members of the community, advocating for particular aspects of the plan and individual elements of the plan, and also being an advocate of the ultimate plan to the community at large. I've been an advocate my entire working career, whether it was in private practice representing individual clients or in-house counsel at TopCon now. My daily activities for the last 30 years have been advocating on behalf of others. And I'm experienced with these kind of issues as well.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Well, good evening. So I get the next question, and I'm going to ask you to be a little bit, as with the previous interviewee, I'm going to ask you to clarify a little bit more for your specific situation. And so I'll explain that a little bit before I ask the question. Both in your application and now tonight, there's been not a lot of daylight between John Doyle and TopCon. And so I guess one of my questions, follow-up questions, is how do we understand that distinction? And then whether we're speaking as John Doyle or as TopCon, and please clarify which. The question is, how would you serve the needs of the many diverse residents of this community, even if at times it may go against your personal preferences?
Okay, so let me take the first one first, because one of the things that I'm very sensitive to with respect to this application and being involved with this is that unlike most all of the other applicants and with this general plan process is I'm not a resident. I'm a resident of the Tri-Valley. I've lived here all my life. I've been involved with Livermore through friends and whatnot since I was in high school. But I do not live here and experience day-to-day life at TopCon. In Livermore. I do experience day-to-day life as an employee of TopCon who I spend, until pre-COVID, I spent every day, all day, Monday through Friday at TopCon and weekends. So I'm in Livermore all of the time. But when I'm in Livermore, I'm an employee of TopCon. I recreate in Livermore. I have friends in Livermore. We like to come to Livermore to enjoy it, but I do not live there. So in my application and tonight, I'm trying to be a little sensitive to the fact that I do, my connection is my work life. Now, I also understand that as an employee of TopCon, I do, and as the single lawyer at that facility in TopCon, I do receive a lot of input from all of my fellow workers who work in Livermore, some of them who live there. And I think that that's something that I could bring to the table in terms of having access to those points of view that could run through me. Now, in terms of the next piece, can I move on to the next piece? Just want to make sure I close it out.
Yeah, you can, but I was going to say either now or later. So since you're asking to close it out,
Yeah,
I'm just going to
sure.
say that really clarified the question. I really appreciate the answer. So
Okay. Oh, thank you.
on to the second part.
Now, I think the best way to serve the needs of the many diverse residents of the community is to encourage all residents to engage in the process. In order to develop an inclusive and across the board fair and equitable process and plan, it's absolutely essential to understand the needs and expectations of all the community members across all backgrounds and experiences to ensure that it's considered as part of the process. And this process only happens so often, so it's just critical that we get all the input that we can from everyone in the community so that we arrive at the best plan possible. So in that regard, I would expect significant community outreach to be undertaken to engage and receive input from all members of the community. And so for me, the simple answer, I guess, would be to encourage engagement, listen some more, and consider all input thoughtfully. And as far as subordinating personal preferences to serving the needs of the many diverse members of the community, I've been practicing law for many years now, and it's relatively common for me to be in a position of representing, clients or positions or taking positions requiring me to advocate on their behalf, even though that position may not be my preferred position. It sort of comes with the territory. So while as a member of the community, I would expect that my preferences would be considered to reach the best result that serves the needs of the community, which by definition includes many different diverse residents. I would entirely expect preferences to be subordinated. The entire process is about community, and the needs of the community certainly outweigh preferences of any individual.
Great. All right. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Were you done? I apologize.
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay. I felt like a mic drop there. All right. Thank you very much.
So as you know, this is a complex document. Can you explain how you would translate some of this information to various community members and then back to staff and council?
Okay. So this is a great question, and it made me consider something that at some level I take for granted because it's part of my everyday experience. At TopCon, we develop and manufacture geopositioning, survey construction, precision agricultural equipment that's based on global GNSS guidance. It's complicated stuff. So I kind of live, I do live in a world of highly complex information that I don't understand all the time, not even close. So I'm continually interacting with team members from all parts of the organization, whether it be people who are, these PhD level engineers to assembly and logistics people that work on National Drive with me, as well as business counterparts when we're working on a deal. So the way that I share and communicate these concepts with audiences of varying education experience levels is, first, we just do our best to compartmentalize complicated topics into as simple as possible pieces, regardless of how sophisticated the audience is. I do this as much for myself as I do it for the person or group that I'm communicating with. And in fact, over the years, I've developed a great appreciation for those certain people that are able to boil down something that's very complex into something accessible and understandable pieces. So in reflecting on this, it struck me how often that in my world over on National Drive every day, how often we use the term bucket or basket in these complicated, discussions. There's not a day that goes by where I'm not asking an engineer to stop, break something down into buckets so that I can understand it, to be able to relay it. The second piece, communicating that on to people of differing experiences, is it's inviting questions throughout, and to make it clear that I expect questions, I want questions, so that we can be aligned in the process. And once again, it's listen, be patient, and then also understand that it may take one more than a pass. It's going to take one more pass or follow up to achieve whatever you're trying to communicate. I think it's that simple.
Thank you.
Okay, again, thank you very much for appearing before us this evening, and we're on to the next interviewee.
Okay, great. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.
The next interviewee is Timothy Kingsbury. Timothy Kingsbury, please unmute yourself and turn your video on.
All right. Hello, everybody.
Hello, welcome, Mr. Kingsbury. Thanks for joining us this evening and taking the time to fill out the application and be prepared for these questions. I think you know the process. Each of us is going to ask you one question, and then the total time allotted is 15 minutes, and you can apportion it as you wish. And the first person to ask a question is Councilmember Bonanno.
All right.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Kingsbury. Thank you for being here. Your first question is, what is the purpose of the general plan and how is it used to guide decision making?
Sure. Well, the general plan really functions as a strategic plan and a long-term planning tool for the city. And its function is to really set forth some goals and policies and plans in place for the benefit of all the residents in the community. It also offers the opportunity to take a look at the current policies, current plans, and to potentially adjust those for new circumstances, for new ideas, new residents, new needs that the community may have. And it's a key tool, I think, for the community to move forward and address needs and within our community, and also the other key point of the plan is, I think, in its formation, is to build a consensus, right? To build a common goal and a commonality amongst the constituents of the community.
Great, thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay, I've got the second question.
Okay.
In your mind, what are the top 1 to 2 issues that need addressing in Livermore through the general plan update? And how are your skills a good match for those particular issues?
Sure. So I think there's 2 key issues. One is affordable housing. And, I define affordable housing as having housing in the community that can serve the needs of the people who work here. Right now, there's many people who work in Livermore who cannot afford to live here. And I think that's the key need. You've got folks in teaching and healthcare and services and entertainment side who work downtown and can't live here. And I think it's just a need that needs to be addressed. The second is the key is diversity. And, I really like Livermore because it does have a lot of aspects of diversity. You've got scientific, you've got agriculture background, you have wineries, you have open space, you have a really cool downtown. It's got a lot of diversity, but there's certain aspects of diversity it doesn't have. That includes the population, includes residents, includes various racial and other community areas that I think need to be addressed. Those to me are the 2 key things of the plan. So how can I help? So I have a finance background, and affordable housing rests on financial issues, and I think I can bring a lot to the table in terms of my understanding. I've spent 40 years in the finance industry. I'm a CPA. I have an MBA. I understand the world of finance really well, and I think I can really help in that area and help in the affordable housing side of it. The second thing that I believe is I have a passion for equality and equal opportunity, and to me, those are just key things that I believe in.
Thank you.
Good evening. Good to see you again, and thanks for applying.
Sure.
Why would you be a good choice for the General Plan Update Advisory Committee? And what 1 word best describes what you would bring to the committee?
Yeah. Well, I think I'd be a good choice for a couple different reasons. I touched on one of them. I have a passion, I think, for quality and equal treatment of people and fairness. And I think that's what the plan's all about, really, at its core. And that's important to me. Second thing is I have a lot of experience. I've lived in a lot of different places in the U.S., in the South, in the Midwest, in Southern California. So I bring I think a lot of different perspectives. I've worked on community issues where I've lived as an advocate, as a volunteer, as an appointed member of various boards. And so I think I bring all that experience and a lot of variety to the job. And if I had 1 word to describe myself, it would be balance. I believe in balancing things, and I think I'm a pretty balanced individual.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm usually a little quicker off on the mute button, but a little slow there. Good evening. How are you?
Good. I'm doing good.
Good. So I get the next question, which is, how would you serve the needs of the many diverse residents of this community, even if at times it may go against your personal preferences?
Okay. So, needs, in my view, is what drives the whole purpose of the plan. It's identifying and determining what the needs are. Needs of the community, needs of the constituents, needs of various other, what does the government Sacramento need from the community? What do the people living here need? To me, it all boils down to that. So how do you address those? Well, I think it starts with listening. Here's a good example. All those comments on the wall that the website has, that's a great place to start. Now, I don't agree with all of them, but it's a great place to start to listen to people, I think that's a key aspect that I think I bring. I listen and I ask questions. That's how I learn things. I don't assume anything. I want to ask questions and understand where people are coming from. I think that's a key thing to identify, the needs side. The other way is through research. I think you got to set your own self aside, your own beliefs and prejudice and thoughts, and do the research. Listen to people and do the research. Understand the facts that you're dealing with. And how do you set? I think that's how you set your own self aside. I really believe in advocating for people. I like advocating for other people. Some people criticize me for putting myself in the back seat, but I really do enjoy advocating for people or for situations that I find myself in, for companies that I work for. I like doing that. And that's how I think I set aside my own. It's hard sometimes, but I think if you focus on the other people and who you're advocating for, I think you can get there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Oh, but sorry. Again, I might have cut you off, did I?
No, I'm good.
Okay, good. All right.
I try to be
Good.
short and to the point.
Okay,
Like most
thank you.
accounts.
I'll turn it over to the two, Councilmember Keck.
Okay, great.
So this can be a complex document, and you'll have to be translating this information between various groups of people, be it the consultants, our city staff, council members, and the various community members who all have a wide variety of experience levels dealing with something like this. Can you explain how you might be good at doing that?
Sure. Okay. My work and my job is always dealing with complex things. Where I work now, we make high technology products. I don't make them, I help finance them, but that's complicated. I have to deal with complicated accounting issues, complicated operational issues. So I'm used to that. Now, how do I get people over that? How do I get people to understand my side of it? Well, one way is through using diagrams, pictures, graphs. I like to draw things out. I also really love explaining things to people. I actually taught several years, sophomores and freshmen in college, accounting courses. So you talk about a challenge, getting people to understand who really have no idea what accounting's about, but they think they want to be one, or that they have to take it because it's a requirement or whatever. So here's how I relate to people. So one thing I said to people in the accounting class, I says, well, your bank account, your bank account is really just an accounting entry on the bank's books. Okay, that it's really just, that's where accounting comes into play. It's keeping the way they keep track of your money is through accounting. So it's not really your money, it's just the bookkeeping. So I relate to students that way. I can put it in terms that maybe they can understand a little better than just all the complexities behind it. So that's how I do it. As I said, I try not to go on too long and try to get to the point. Also, another way to get things across to people, I think, is to ask questions. I think if you ask questions and engage people, if you can put things in terms of, instead of a declarative statement and more of a question and answer, I think you can get things across to people. The whole point is getting people to engage and interact, and that's how I think learning happens and understanding happens.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Hey, well, thank you again for taking the time to go through the process here with us.
Sure.
We're now going to be taking a break, and so thanks for appearing with us. We're a few minutes ahead of schedule, so I think if we could take the break now and advance our time by 5 minutes. So we start with Mr. Martinez at 6:05, if that works for everyone. Okay, good. So let's do that. We'll be back at 6:05. Okay, it's 6:05. We're back from our break. Is Mr. Martinez available? That was a question to the city clerk.
Yes, Mayor.
Okay.
Mr. Martinez, you are being promoted to
Sorry, my
panelist.
headphones were messed up. Are we ready for the next person?
Yes.
Mr. Martinez, you've been promoted to panelist. Please unmute and turn on your video.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much for being with us this evening and taking all the time and effort to fill out the application and prepare the answers to the questions. I think you know the process. We've got 5 questions, one from each of us, 15 minutes that you can allocate across the questions. And the first person to ask you a question is Councilmember Bonanno.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Martinez. Thank
Good
you for
evening.
being here. Your first question is, what is the purpose of the general plan and how is it used to guide decision-making?
Yeah, so the general plan is a legally binding document that's drawn up. And every 20 years, and the city council uses the document, refers to the document in order to make decisions. Decisions ranging from land use to infrastructure development, to economic development, to environmental sustainability, and other major important issues that are critical to Livermore's development over the next 20 years. It can be updated from time to time. It has to be approved by the state, and it really functions, I guess, more or less as kind of like a constitution for local governance and development. And I think also, you know, most importantly, I think the general plan really functions as an expression of our values as residents of Livermore. And it tells the rest of our community members what our priorities are and what our hopes are for our town and for our citizens who are living and working here.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I've got the second question. What are the top 1 to 2 issues that need addressing in Livermore through the general plan update? And how are your skills a good match for those tackling those issues?
Yeah, so I think, you know, the first most important, most pressing issue that we have facing Livermore over the next 20 years is definitely land use. And that's because, you know, at the intersection of land use, we have the issue of affordable housing, infrastructure development, and also economic development. And so to echo what some of our other community members have said in previous interviews, affordable housing is a major issue. It's a major issue for our service sector employees, for our government employees, for our teachers, firefighters, police officers, and healthcare workers. And so there's going to be big changes coming, not just to Livermore, but to all cities throughout California, especially with Senate Bills 8, 9, and 10, and the other 30 some odd pieces of legislation that are about to be signed by the governor concerning housing and zoning. And so there's going to be big changes coming our way. And, you know, part of the general plan is going to be sort of dictating how we deal with that future development. We need more market rate affordable housing. I want my children to be able to purchase homes in Livermore and choose to live here if they can, and if they want to. I grew up in Fremont and spent my early career teaching there. And so I know what it's like to be a young working professional and to be priced out of the hometown that you grew up in when you do everything right and still can't afford to live where you're from. And so I want to make sure that we can grow and help the city make decisions to grow in a responsible way. And that's going to make sure, I think most presently that our infrastructure can keep up with our housing demands moving forward in the future. Economic development, helping our small business owners and our growers be able to grow as well, and to make sure that our infrastructure supports their development, expanding downtown, creating accessibility to recreational activities that people want to do, from going on hikes to going out to dinner, and being able to take advantage of what we have to offer here for our families. I guess the second biggest pressing issue that I think that the general plan is can address, but I already touched on it, and that's really retention of our service workers and our local workers. I think it's really, really important that the people who serve our community in a professional, vocational capacity can live in our city. And most importantly, our teachers and our educators. As an educator, as a teacher, as an administrator, I understand how important it is for teachers to be able to live in the communities that they're serving, especially when they're from Livermore. And many of our educators live in Livermore. They grew up in Livermore, and I'd like to help keep it that way. And I think it should be a priority of our city. And then I guess the other is sort of climate change, and water, most importantly. Regardless of the reasons for climate change, the climate's changing, and wildfires and droughts are increasing. And so we have an important agricultural economy, and I'm just really concerned about how are we as citizens and residents of Livermore going to prepare ourselves for the water crisis that's looming, and really that's already begun here for us. And I think I'm equipped to serve on the General Plan Advisory Committee. I think I have the skills, both as a public employee, as a political scientist, as somebody who understands policy, somebody who understands how local government and state government operates. I think I have that sort of academic and professional skill set that will really make me an asset to the City Council.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for applying. Why would you be a good choice for the General Plan Update Advisory Committee, and what one word best describes what you would bring to the committee?
Yeah. So aside from my sort of, I think, professional or vocational credentials that I just listed, I think I'm going to be a good fit because, I think I check a lot of boxes. I think I'm attuned with a lot of congruent interests, diverse interests from our community. I'm a young father. I'm a resident of Livermore. I'm a homeowner here in Livermore. But I also rented here in Livermore before I was a homeowner. I'm an employee of the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District. I was a teacher. I'm an administrator now. My parents live in Livermore, and so I'm attuned with the needs of our retired community. And so I think I represent a good cross section of our residents. I'm Hispanic. My wife is really an immigrant. She came here when she was 2 years old, but her parents are Vietnamese immigrants, and so I kind of understand and am in tune to sort of the diverse needs of many different folks that live here and reside in Livermore. And I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question?
What one word best describes what you would bring?
Integrity. That's the word that I would choose. I've always wanted to get involved in local government because I know how important it is. I've been more focused on building my family and my career. And I was sort of just waiting for the opportunity to start getting involved in local government. And so when I found out that the general plan was being updated and that there was an advisory committee being formed, I thought that this is probably a best opportunity for me to start getting acquainted with local government operations, our city, and how things are done and work here in Livermore. But public service is serious business. And you know, two words have sort of guided my professional, my vocational pursuits, and that's citizenship and civic virtue. And so that's public life and public good. And so I will conduct myself with integrity and ethics, and really that's what is going to guide my my process, my outreach to community members, and then of course my counsel to you all, the city council, who's going to rely on the general plan in the coming years to help make decisions guiding our town.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Good evening. I get the next question, which is, how would you serve the needs of the many diverse residents in this community? I think, you know, given the number of boxes you've said you checked, maybe just look inside your head. I don't know. Even if at times it may go against your personal preferences. And it's a serious question, even if I did, you know, take a little joke in there.
It is a serious question. And I think I'll kind of refer back to the end of my last answer, and that's the public good. Yeah, I fell in love with constitutional history and constitutional law when I was in high school. And I fell in love with the founding of our nation and the Constitutional Convention in particular. And the public good really guided some framers. And so, you know, they were big fans of the Roman Republic. And so they looked to a lot of Roman philosophers for guidance and ethical guidance, and civic virtue means a lot to me. And really what that means at the end of the day is that sometimes you have to give up your own personal interests for the greater good and for the public good. And so really that has guided my decision to become an educator, and it guides my decision to apply to be on the General Plan Advisory Committee. And so I understand that in order to be a good leader, sometimes you do have to advance the public good over your own personal and private interests.
All right, thank you very much. I'll turn it over to Councilmember Kick.
Hi, so as you know, this can be a complex and technical document. Can you explain how you would translate this information to people of various experience levels and between all the different stakeholders that will be participating in this process?
Yeah, so, you know, as an educator, I'm in the business of communication, I think, first and foremost. As a teacher, I was teaching constitutional history and law to 17 and 18-year-olds. And that's complex, it's technical. Now as an administrator, I have to explain ed code and legislation to teachers, to parents, and also to students as well. So I have a lot of experience explaining complex legal, complex, but I've experienced explaining policy, but leave it at that. You know, as an educator, in order to explain information, you know, it's really all about scaffolding information. If you want to explain something that's complex to somebody, then you need to scaffold information for them. So, I mean, it really starts first with, you know, building context, you know, explaining the history, the background of whatever it is that you're trying to communicate or discuss with folks. It's, you know, breaking down key terms, explaining jargon, kind of putting together the building blocks for again, explaining something new to somebody. And so as an educator, I have to do that on a day-to-day basis. And I think that will serve me well when communicating with all different kinds of folks who are in our community, as really as a representative of them and the cross-section of them as a member of the General Plan Advisory Committee. And so I think I'm well-versed and capable of doing that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're on mute.
All right. Sorry. Again, thank you so much for taking the time to go through this process, the application and preparing for this evening. And we're now on to our next interviewee, Mr. Kemp.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
David Kent, please unmute yourself and turn your video on. We're promoting you to panelist.
There we go.
Okay, well, good evening, Mr. Kent. Thank you for being with us tonight and taking all the trouble you've gone through to be here. I think you know the drill. With 5 questions, 15 minutes, one from each of us. And the first person to ask a question is Councilmember Bonanno.
Hi, Mr. Kent. Good evening. Thanks for being here. So your first question is, what is the purpose of the general plan and how is it used to guide decision making?
Okay. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to interview with you tonight. The general plan is the city's long-range policy document for growth, land use, transportation, sustainability, and conservation. Its purpose is to articulate a vision for the city's long-term physical form and development. The general plan update, offers the community and this council an opportunity to reevaluate, our existing policies and develop new ones. And those new policies could address shifts in community priorities as well as market trends. And this point is really critical for me. I've been involved in long-range business planning since the mid-1990s. And the analogy I often use is you can't drive a car by staring solely at the rearview mirror or at the hood ornament. There's valuable lessons from the past and from the present, but they have to be balanced with the changing road conditions. And look, Livermore is going to be larger. It's going to be more diverse. It's going to be more connected than in the past. And the next general plan needs to reflect this.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I've got the second question. What are the top 1 to 2 issues that, in your opinion, need addressing in Livermore through the general plan update? And how are your skills a good match for those issues, that task at hand?
Okay. Well, one, affordable housing. Can our children afford to live here? Can we attract enough highly skilled employees to keep our local businesses growing? And the second would be to have a seamless interface with Valley Link. Are we simply, as a city, going to be a stop on the line? Or can we leverage Valley Link to really move our workforce in a more humane and efficient manner and really better activate our downtown and the wine country? I believe I have a working knowledge of these issues and other issues and a lot of valuable experience to share, but I need to learn a lot more, and I'm really eager to do so.
Thank you.
Good evening, and thanks for applying. Why would you be a good choice for the General Plan Update Advisory Committee? And what one word best describes what you would bring to the committee?
Yeah, the one word did require reflection. But for me, it would really be synthesis. I collect lots of data. I look for the patterns. I search for the elegant solution, and I try to make the complex simpler to grasp. And I think I've had a career where synthesis has really been, one of my key contributors. I'm an active member of this community. I really appreciate Livermore's unique character. I think I've had a lot of hats in my career, and I think many of these would have direct bearing on this advisory committee if I'm chosen. They go from running a large global business to starting up, a very small family winery business. I'm a grape farmer and an environmentalist, and I try to collaborate and contribute wherever I can.
Thank you.
Hey, well, good evening. I get the next question, which is, how would you serve the needs of the many diverse residents of this community, even if at times it may go against your personal preferences?
Yeah, that happens more often than one think. I was often called upon to do that as chair of the Wine Institute and as chair of the Livermore Chamber of Commerce, and in my current role as in its final months as the chair of the Tri-Valley Conservancy. I've always viewed it as my job to balance the needs of like the small and the large members, the old guard with the risk takers. We always have the very vocal advocates, but we also have the voices of those who are less heard, and you have to make the effort to make sure that they can be heard on these matters and that their opinion is equally valid as the people who will constantly bend your ear. I look for the common ground. Look in Livermore, we all want great schools. We want a vibrant downtown. We want safe streets. I try to start with what unites us. And yes, I can manage against personal preference. I do have opinions, but I do try to follow Teddy Roosevelt's example, which is, when you're under the tent flap, you have an obligation to speak your mind. What is your opinion? You speak the truth. But when you're on the hill, you support the group decision and you do it with all your effort, even if you recommended another course of action. So I think throughout my career, if we've decided to move in a different direction than the one I wanted, I'm always willing to support the decision.
Okay, right, thank you.
Hi, so as you know, this can be a complex and technical document. Can you describe how you would be a good conduit to communicate this to all of the different various stakeholders, be it the council or the city staff and all of the other members of this committee who have various experience levels?
Okay. I have 40 years of experience of managing complex issues. And even in the last 5 years, I've been deep into electronic data rooms as a strategic consultant, where I need to distill 120 hours plus of complex financial and marketplace reports and turn them into short summaries that the clients can look at. And I think that goes back to some of these synthesis issues. I enjoy doing the work, but communication is always a challenge, and it's something I've had to learn to be better at over the years. Because sometimes you don't need to explain the chemistry of malolactic fermentation, but instead, really, you just need to make it relatable to the audience and say, look, it transforms the crisp acidity of an apple to the smooth mouthfeel of yogurt. You just have to be able to read the room and really adapt.
Thank you. Now I want to know what that actually does.
Okay, for the chemistry, I think we have all kinds of chemists on this call. So
I just want to know which wine that came from.
Well, that's De Mayo Chardonnay, our best-selling Chardonnay. It turns from a crisp one to a buttery one through that process. It's actually a bacteria, so the chemistry isn't so exciting to talk about.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And we're on to our final interviewee for this evening. So thanks again for taking the time and effort to be with us this evening.
Thank you.
Maxwell Young, you're going to be promoted to panelist. Please unmute yourself and turn your video on.
Hello, is my mic working?
Yes, it is. Welcome, Mr. Young.
Hello.
Thanks for being. thanks for taking the time to be with us this evening and all the effort it took to prepare to do that.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Great. I think you probably know the drill we have here. We've got 5 questions, 15 minutes. Each of us will ask you one of those questions, and you can allocate your time as you see fit. And the first person to ask the question is Councilmember Bonanno.
Well, hi, good evening, Mr. Young. Thank you for being here. Your first question is, what is the purpose of the general plan and how is it used to guide decision making?
The purpose of the general plan is to provide a general guideline for the next 25 years for the city. So it gives a guideline for property development, policy development, and principles. It also lays the groundwork for such.
Great, thank you.
Just as a side note, I'm not used to this as I'm a high school student, so just keep that in mind.
Oh, no problem. We really appreciate you being here, and that's it's great. So yeah, we understand. I've got the second question, which is what are the top 1 to 2 issues that need addressing in Livermore through this general plan update? And how are your background and skills a good match for those issues, dealing with those?
I think the top issue for the city in the next 25 years is the availability of housing and the pricing of it. As the population has rapidly grown in the past few decades, and the next plan needs to be able to accommodate for that. The second aspect would probably be the extent of public transport, as I don't believe it goes far enough to allow for people to want to use it over their car. As for me being a good match, I don't have much experience, so most of what I have is my passion for city planning and whatnot, as I plan to study urban studies and planning in college. So.
Great. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for applying. Why would you be a good choice for the General Plan Update Advisory Committee? And what one word best describes what you would bring to the committee?
I believe the reason I would be a good choice is because I can very easily see the perspective of the teenagers and children in Livermore and how they interact with the city. I can also talk to a wide variety of students at Livermore High School and see their perspective as well. And I can provide their input. As for the one word, I believe that would be passion, as I have a passion for city planning. I've used multiple softwares and studied how cities are designed and how they're laid out, what's put in it to create a strong community. And yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. And I get the next question. So good evening, and glad that you're here, high school or not. It's you are to be commended. How would you serve the needs of the many diverse residents of this community, even if at times it may go against your personal preferences?
I can easily serve the needs of the community, as I feel my personal needs have already been met. And so I'm able to focus on the needs of others very easily. So yeah.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
And yet again, as a Livermore High School student, I can talk to a wide range, and such as the rural community members. As at Livermore, there are many rural students, and I feel like most of the time it would be hard to see their opinion, as it would be harder to reach them.
Okay. I do have a follow-up question, which is sort of the reverse of the question that I asked the mayor, which is, he has a very big voice. You began your interview with an allusion, saying, "I'm not used to this. I'm a high school student." So given that you might be feeling that your voice is maybe not as large, have you thought a little bit about how you would make that voice larger?
It's a great question.
This has to do with how you feel, I think, more than anything.
Oh, well, I do have a lack of anxiety compared to most other students that I know. So I'm able to talk more about things and not collapse in stress.
All right, great. Thank you. And thanks for taking the question on the fly.
So this is a complex technical document. Can you explain how you would be able to translate this information to people with various levels of experience, be it the city staff or the council or the other members of the committee?
Well, as a high school student, I don't have as much experience as others. So as for experience-wise, not much. But for simplifying it for other people, I feel like you could do that very easily. As in Boy Scouts, I'm a patrol leader, so I talk to younger scouts a lot and teach them stuff. So I can simplify things and explain it to them. Yeah. And for sharing complex technical information, experience in it wise, even though I don't have that much, I do have some from my AP classes where, for example, in US history, we've been taking all of the Supreme Court decisions and figuring out why they made those decisions in the first place.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for being here this evening. It was very good. So we're on to now our deliberations, and appreciate the time you took to prepare for this. And so good night. We're now moving on. You can continue to watch your deliberation.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here and the chance to be on this board in the first place.
Oh, you're most welcome. Thank you for appearing. Okay, we are now on to the next phase of our deliberations, and wanted to take a few minutes with the council to make sure basically that we're having a chance to all get on the same page with respect to what we're doing. And there are two things that I think we need to address. One is, do we want to revisit the composition of the advisory committee for the general plan? We did that in the equity and inclusion. And so we have a chance to think about doing something different here. And the second, and I'll explain in a moment what I want to put before the council. And then the second thing I want to do after we figure that out is make sure we all understand the process for how we're going to vote. We've got a lot of votes to make, and I think the city staff has come up with some good ideas on how to do it. And I think we want to give them a little bit of an opportunity to explain it, not only to us, but the community at large as to the process. So the first thing here is, I want to go back to our previous decision with respect to the composition of this advisory committee. It was recommended by staff and PlaceWorks that 15 would be an appropriate number. It was mentioned during the council deliberations. Councilmember Bonanno brought up, well, perhaps 17 would give us a better number. Councilmember or Vice Mayor Monroe suggested, well, maybe 20. And then I said, well, why don't we keep the 15 and put in 4 alternates? And that was kind of an on-the-fly suggestion on my part. But if you reflect on, maybe that's a little bit too complicated, and Councilmember Carling is always for simplicity of things. So I want to put it before us that we not try and distinguish between regular members and alternates, and that we think about just making everyone the same and realize that there will be attrition, because that's why we, over the years, so we may start out with a certain number, say 20, but we'll end up, I'm pretty sure, towards the end of this with a fewer number. And this way, everybody starts out the same, everybody's got the same preparation. So that was the, so my original suggestion, I think, could be simpler. And so I want to toss it out there to the council. Does any of that resonate or make sense? Or what do people think? I see, let me make sure I open up the participants, and looks like the first hand up was Vice Mayor Monroe.
You're right. So my first is a comment, which is the 20 that I threw out was really an example. I actually would not support 20 because it's an even number, and odd numbers on committees are good things. But I would support making your suggestion of making everybody equal and going with attrition. I think that's a fine idea. That's all.
Well, so before you end, are you saying 19?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm sorry. Yeah, yes. To be clear, take 1 away from 20 makes it perfect. Great. Yes, please.
Okay, Councilmember Carling.
I agree with your point about making them all equal. My preference would be 15, which is what PlaceWorks is suggesting. So that's where I am, 15, and no alternates.
Okay. Councilmember Bonanno.
Yeah, I definitely support expanding the committee. I think we have too many good candidates, and I think we'd be shortchanging the process if we didn't expand to include more people. I just think we have an outstanding group of people, and the more we can include, they all look like great collaborators that think they would, work well in a group like this. I think a more 20 would be a manageable group. I don't mind going with 20. I don't know how many things will actually be voted on that we need to have an odd number. I suspect we're going to see attrition, and we may end up with an even number or an odd number. I don't know that we have to be too concerned about an odd number, but I understand the point. So I'll just leave it like that. And just to reiterate, I just don't think I think we'll get a better process by including more of the excellent people we've had a chance to get to know over the last week and a half. So that's my vote. I would go with 20, but I definitely support expanding.
Thank you, Councilmember Kick.
I have a clarifying question for city staff. What would having an odd or even number make a difference, and what kind of difference would that make in the ease of process, or what do you think? Does that matter?
So
I know that technically we get to decide, but what's your opinion?
So this is Paul Spence, your Community Development Director. An odd number is helpful when we have a vote, but as was mentioned over the course of 2.5 years, there may certainly be attrition. We may not have everybody on any given night. So I don't know that it matters quite as much as it does with a standing body. I think most of the recommendations that come out of the committee will be a little more general. I would, don't think too many of them are going to be, a 14-6 vote or something like that. I think it's going to be a little more general in terms of their recommendations. So I don't think the odd number is critical.
Councilmember Kick, this is your city attorney, Jason Alcala. I will echo Mr. Spence's comments. I will highlight when you have an even number, what is the challenge with that is it could lead to a tie vote. So if you anticipate there to be a tie vote, an odd number is a better solution. But with that in mind, you're welcome to have an even number of members.
I wish that PlaceWorks was here so we could ask Joanna what she would like. But generally, I guess I'm just more with odd makes sense to me. That's not a hill I'm gonna die on. I also agree with Carling that I think smaller groups are better and just more manageable as someone who's been a facilitator. So, but I will agree that there are good people we will leave off if we go to 15. But that's, I think, a decision that we'll have to make. So I guess that makes you the tie vote, Warner.
I think Vice Mayor Monroe, did you have your hand up again?
I did, but it sounded like maybe it wasn't necessary. All I was going to say is that I continue to stand with a larger number. I don't actually care if it's even or odd at this point, based on what I've heard. Whatever works, as long as we're expanding it some. So.
Okay, well, to advance the ball, I'll move that we expand the committee to 20 regular members. Do we have a second?
I would second.
Okay, we have any further discussion? If not, we have a roll call.
Councilmember Bonanno,
Aye.
Councilmember Carling,
No.
Councilmember Kick,
Okay. Aye.
Vice Mayor Monroe,
That was the saddest aye I've ever heard. I'll say aye.
Mayor Warner.
Aye. So the motion passes. So I think the next question I have is to the city attorney. So you can see that there's a desire to change the composition of the General Plan Advisory Committee from the 15 regular and 4 alternates, which is to 20 regular members. And so the question is procedurally, what do we needs to be done to allow for us to make that change?
All right. So, Mr. Mayor, this is Jason Alcala, your city attorney. Looking at the resolution that was adopted by the city council back in July, that would need to be revised to reflect the composition change that the council has just requested here. So that would have to return at a later date to make those changes, 1, to the composition, and 2, to the quorum requirements in the committee's rules of procedure. So that would have to follow along afterwards at a subsequent meeting, and to reflect what your decision is today as far as your appointments as well. We'd recommend that be ratified.
Well, thank you. So the based on what you just said, I'd like the city council support to direct staff to return at a future council meeting with a resolution that adjusts the prior resolution to conform the committee's membership and its rules of procedure to the city council's appointments tonight, and for that resolution to ratify the appointments. So can it was a head, just a raise the hand, that's good enough. Okay, and I think, is that sufficient, Mr. Alcala?
It looks like we had a quorum of the city council members nodding in concession to provide that direction. So we've received the direction necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next thing I would like city staff to do, if you could, is just summarize, explain the voting process, And I just want to make sure that all of the council members are in agreement with the process that was devised.
Thank you, Mayor. This is Paul Spence, your Community Development Director again. And staff has identified a selection process for you this evening that would involve voting for candidates in a series of rounds, with the requirement that each member selected to the committee will receive votes from at least 3 council members. In the initial rounds, the number of council votes will match the number of positions available. So with 20 positions available, each council member would vote for 20 candidates. Council will vote by putting a yes next to the candidate's name on a spreadsheet provided by the city clerk. When you're done voting, those votes will then be sent to the city clerk, who will take a break, tabulate the results, and then return to the meeting to display the results and read off the votes from each council member. There are 3 possible outcomes at the end of round 1. One is that you'll select the exact number of people needed. Not very likely, but possible. Number 2 is that you would select less than the number needed, in which case we would move on to round 2 and you would go through the voting process again. And the third possibility is that you'll select more than the number needed and we'll need to move to a tiebreaker. If you do select less than the number needed in round 2, for example, if 10 people are selected in round 1, you will have 10 remaining candidates, and all of the people still available could be voted for. So you'll have actually 18 candidates and 10 people to vote for in round 2 as that example. In the event of a tie, those tying with the lowest number of qualifying votes will move on to a tiebreaker. And I'll give you an example. If there are 3 seats available and you have 2 candidates with 4 votes, 2 candidates with 3 votes, and the remainder with 2 or fewer votes, those with 4 would automatically be selected, and those with 3 votes would move on to a tiebreaker for the 1 remaining seat. Now, the candidates with 2 or fewer votes would be removed from the selection process. And in the tiebreaker process, you'll vote for 1 less person than the number of candidates available. After each round in this process, the clerk will send you an updated spreadsheet showing those selected, those who've been removed due to a tie, and those who are eligible to receive a vote. And in just a moment here, she can put that spreadsheet on the screen for you to see.
Okay, and what I would, so the question that I have for the council is, you know, the explanation, as you said, I don't think any of us could repeat it back. But having been through it, it makes sense. And I think what we'll need to do at each step of the process is get a refresh on what's happening next. So I think we'll do it that way. But my own opinion is this will work. You kind of have to see it in action to make sense of it. And is there any member of the council that needs any further clarification of anything?
So do we already have that document in our email? Sorry. Or are we getting it right now?
So you got to be raising your hand, right? So, I believe the document has been sent to us, and we'll ask the city clerk at this point. Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor, that's correct.
Okay, so Councilmember Carling, you were first with your hand.
Yeah, I understand the process, I think, generally, and I certainly appreciate the fact that we'll be reminded after each voting round. Here's my own personal point of view. And we all have different criteria that we set internally, I suppose, as to who would be a good participant on the advisory committee. And I'll be honest, I can't come up and will not come up with 20 people. So I will submit the number that I think are qualified, but it's not going to be 20. So I'm just letting you know. Thank you.
I think that was a possibility that was anticipated. And I think what we want to, I mean, I personally haven't done any kind of simulation of that. And I must say that I understand your point of view, and I can. So the question is to Mr. Spence, is that going to give us any heartache?
In later rounds, it could. So if you had 5 candidates available, 5 spots available, and each council member said, I can only vote for one person, you would run into some issues. But in the preliminary rounds, it probably won't make too much difference.
Okay, and I think that's in the spirit of this, it's a kind of a complex decision we've got for us, and rather than just going through everybody sequentially and voting and abstaining, I think we can get through this faster with this. And frankly, if we get to the latter stages and we kind of hung up for some reason, I think we can adjust. Does that work? So, Councilmember Carling, for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very confident, and I understand what Paul said. And my expectation was that it'd be a problem, could be a problem at the end. But I'm not going to change my own set of criteria that I've set internally for myself in terms of people that I'm going to vote for. But I understand completely.
And I think it's, and I want to say is that we all have the right to abstain. And that's basically what you're saying, is you're reserving that right. And that's perfectly reasonable, and no one would try and abridge that right. So we'll figure it out. We'll see what happens. The idea is that we'll vote for the number of candidates, and those, say in the first round, they get all 5 of us to agree, would clearly get on. And then say 4 votes, most likely the 4 votes would get on. What will happen though, is we go through this thing and we could end up with the more 3 votes than we have slots. And then we would then turn to everyone who got a 3 vote and then select from that. And then at that point, if there's further abstentions, I think we'll just figure it out as we go. But the idea is we just keep winnowing through until we get the top votes through there. So Councilmember Bonanno.
Yeah, I just have a question about the spreadsheet. I'm noticing, I have it in front of me, and this is to maybe help the city clerk work through this when she gets the score shot. Do you want us to put an X in the column, or do you want us to put a yes? Because there's a formula that tallies up how many yeses are in each of our columns, and it's only counting if there's a yes. But in one of your rows here, it says applicant selection with an X. Which would you like us to put into the cell if we want to nominate the candidate, the applicant? Yes or an X?
Apologize for that, Councilmember Bonanno. It is a yes.
It's a yes. Okay, thank you.
I think the idea possibly here is we didn't know at the time these spreadsheets were prepared how many applicants we have. So I think the X's in row 3 are because we just made the decision. Is that correct, Marie?
That's correct. At the ones at the top, but I think Councilmember Bonanno was saying that I may have put that they put an X in the box as they are selecting, but it should be a yes in the box that they are selecting, and I will fill in the number of votes and the number of selecting as we go.
Right. So on the first thing that we got on the spreadsheet, I'm looking at it, is round 1, it's 20 applicants to be selected. That's how many we're going for. And the votes, in consideration of the way the Councilmember Carling pointed, it's up to 20 votes that we have. And at the bottom of the spreadsheet, I think it's row 33, it kindly tabulates the number of yes votes that we put in. So we know we can make sure that we don't exceed our allotment. So what we're going to do now is now take a half-hour break, and that will give us 20 minutes to fill out the spreadsheet and send it to the city clerk. So we're going to take a total half-hour break. At the 20-minute point, our spreadsheets are due to the city clerk, and then at 7:30, we'll reconvene and we'll see the results, and then we're off to the races here. Everybody good with that? Okay. We'll be back at 7:30, and we'll get our spreadsheets to everybody to the clerk at 7:20. It's 7:30. As soon as I see the rest of our council members appear, we'll get back in business here. Okay, it looks like all the council members are present again, and would like to continue on with the meeting. And we've all voted and submitted our results to the city clerk. At this point, could the city clerk tell us what happened?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I will go ahead and read the votes submitted by each council member, and then I can show my screen and announce the candidates who received 3 or more votes this evening. So for Mayor Warner, he submitted votes for, excuse me, Krista Alexi, Arun Bhatia, Alan Burnham, Carmelita Chong, John Doyle, Thomas Matt Graves, Paul Halverson, David Kent, Timothy Kingsbury, Tracy Kronzak, Elena Lawden, John Marchand, David Martinez, Ellen Pete, Heriberto Ravulta, Stephanie Shang, Steven Spadafsky, Greta Stahl, Asa Strout, and Jeremy Troop Massey. Vice Mayor Monroe submitted votes for Krista Alexi, Alan Burnham, Carmelita Chong, Thomas Matt Graves, Paul Halverson, David Kent, Timothy Kingsbury, Tracy Kronzak, Elena Lawden, John Marchand, David Martinez, Manav Patel, Ellen Pete, Heriberto Ravulta, Stephanie Shang, Steven Spadafsky, Greta Stahl, Asa Strout, Jeremy Troop Massey, and Maxwell Young. Councilmember Bonanno submitted votes for Alexa Christie, Arun Bhatia, Alan Burnham, Carmelita Chong, John Doyle, Thomas Matt Graves, Paul Halverson, David Kent, Timothy Kingsbury, Tracy Kronzak, Elena Lawden, John Marchand, David Martinez, Ellen Pete, Heriberto Ravulta, Stephanie Shang, Steven Spadafsky, Greta Stahl, Asa Strout, and Jeremy Troop Massey. Councilmember Carling submitted votes for Krista Alexi, Arun Bhatia, Carmelita Chong, Nicholas Graves, Thomas Matt Graves, Paul Halverson, David Kent, Tracy Kronzak, Elena Lawden, David Martinez, Ellen Pete, Heriberto Ravulta, Stephanie Shang, Greta Stahl, Asa Strout, and Jeremy Troop Massey. And Councilmember Kick submitted votes for Krista Alexi, Arun Bhatia, Alan Burnham, Carmelita Chong, Thomas Matt Graves, Paul Halverson, David Kent, Timothy Kingsbury, Tracy Kronzak, Elena Lawden, John Marchand, David Martinez, Manav Patel, Ellen Pete, Heriberto Ravulta, Stephanie Shang, Steven Spadafsky, Greta Stahl, Asa Strout, and Jeremy Troop Massey. Mayor, I will share my screen to show those results. The applicants who received 3 or more votes of the council include Krista Alexi, Arun Bhatia, Alan Burnham, Carmelita Chong, Thomas Matt Graves, Paul Halverson, David Kent, Timothy Kingsbury, Tracy Kronzak, Elena Lawden, John Marchand, David Martinez, Ellen Pete, Heriberto Ravulta, Stephanie Shang, Steven Spadafsky, Greta Stahl, Asa Strout, and Jeremy Troop Massey, for a total of 19.
Okay, thank you. So I would like to make another motion, if I may, given these results. Basically, for us to declare victory, given the earlier conversation. We have 19 people that received 3 or more votes. And this, earlier there was some question of whether we should go to 20 or not. We had 19 to start with in the last meeting that when we set up the rules. And so I would like to just say revise the 20 that we went to earlier to 19, and we're done. So that's my suggestion at this point. I'll turn it into the council, back to the council for reaction to that thought. Vice Mayor Monroe.
Yeah, so that was certainly my initial thought on looking at that. It's like, you know, why did we go to 20? My concern here is that going back and forth, you know, so I guess I have a point of order, which is, or a question.
You can
can we even do this? We can, I guess.
You can imagine I checked with the city attorney.
I'd like you to say it out loud. Thank you.
So, Mr. Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, this is your city attorney, Jason Alcala. Yes, you do have the opportunity to change your prior motion. You can either adopt another motion or you can do a motion to reconsider. Either way will work. If you so choose to change your prior motion this evening to increase or change the composition to 20 full-time members. If you want to take a subsequent motion to set the number at 19 full-time members, and then again give staff the direction to return with a revised resolution to conform to the council's decision, we can do that.
I have a follow-up question to that, which is that one of the things that one of the rules around making the decision was anybody who gets 3 or more votes. And there wasn't anybody. There were either 4 or 5 votes, or there were 1 or 2 votes or 0 votes. So, I mean, I'd be totally comfortable going with the 19, but is it even a question to go to the 20 given those results?
No, yes, I mean, it was because we said we had 20 was the target, and we have a process for getting there, and that process is frankly somewhat painful because we put everybody back in the pool and go through it. So yes, we have at the moment an authorization to go to 20, and we have a process for getting there. So my suggestion that we revise it allows us to end this now.
Well, would you like a motion?
Well, yes, you're free to do that. We've got Councilmember Kick wants to say something, but we also have the opportunity to have discussion on the motion. So go ahead and make the motion.
Yeah, I will move that we revise or whatever the legal term that the city attorney would prefer, to move to our original number of 19 and declare victory. Last part doesn't have to be in the motion.
Madam Vice Mayor, this is your city attorney, Jason Alcala. If I could clarify the motion you placed upon the table, which is to have a composition for this committee of 19 regular seated members, rather than going back to what we had before, which was 15 full seated and 4 alternates. I think your motion is to have 19 full regular seated members on this committee.
Correct. And whether that's a full new motion or a revision of the one that we passed just a few minutes ago, that's my question. But yes, what you just said is my goal.
Okay, so that'll be a new motion on the table to take that action, which is to have the composition for the general plan committee to be comprised of 19 full members, based upon the council's selection that's been submitted to the city clerk.
Okay, do we have a second for that? Because once a motion is made, we've got to find out if there's a second.
I will second.
Great. Any further, would you like to comment or any discussion on the motion? Councilmember Banana.
Yeah, I'm fine with this. I think none of us were hard over on a very precise number. I think we were wanting to get the best possible result and the best possible composition. I think we have a lot of consensus amongst us that this is a great group. So I'm totally fine with 19. 20 was with a starting point, and I think we've landed on 19. It's fine with me.
Great. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Bonanno.
Aye.
Councilmember Carling.
Aye.
Councilmember Kay. Councilmember Kick,
Sorry, I lost unmute. Aye.
Vice Mayor Monroe,
Aye.
Mayor Warner.
Aye. The motion passes unanimously. And now we can get back to, I just want to, and I'm sure others will want to comment, but I want to say thank you very much to everyone who applied. We have a lot of good applicants and there will be other opportunities. And I want to congratulate those that were selected to be on the committee. And I believe we've got a very broad representative sample of people from our community, and that I'm looking forward to a lot of good work. So,
Mr. Mayor, this is your city attorney.
Oh, yes.
You did submit your selections to the city clerk and she gave you the rankings of those. I had requested the city council actually make an appointing motion for those 19 members that had 3 or more votes.
Okay, I see lots of hands raised, but that's probably not what they were intending to do. But I'll let them go in the order, and hopefully the first thing you can do is what the city attorney just suggested. So Councilmember Bonanno.
All right, well, I will start by very happily moving that we approve the 19 individuals who were selected through our process. Is that adequate, Mr. City Attorney? Is there special words you need me to use?
So as I understand the motion is to appoint the 19 members that have been selected by the city council who received 3 votes or more as articulated by the city clerk.
Yes, I didn't form that in the, I didn't make that in the form of a motion because I wasn't entirely sure you were actually asking for a formal motion. So yes, I move that we appoint the 19 people that got the 3 or more votes, and that we are so moved. What you say?
Okay, Councilmember Kick is up next.
I'll second, and then I'll send my other thing later.
Okay, and now it's moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, I see Councilmember Bonanno, you have your hand up.
No, I just was putting my hand up to make a few closing remarks, that's all.
Oh, okay, well, okay, so is that also true for you, Councilmember Kick? Okay, great. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Bonanno,
Aye.
Councilmember Carlene,
Aye.
Councilmember Kick,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Monroe,
Aye.
Mayor Warner.
Aye. So now we're official. Sorry, I've overlooked that step, very important step. And I'll just, I think I had said most of what I was going to say, but I'll, Councilmember Bonanno.
Oh, all right. Well, I just wanted to add my thanks to everybody who applied and went through this process and was willing to make this multi-year commitment to serve the city in this way. And I hope even the folks that didn't get selected will continue to participate and get involved in some way, shape, or form, because I think everybody we got an application from and everyone we interviewed had a lot to offer. I was totally impressed with what we heard from all of the people we talked to. It was just eye-opening to get everyone's insights and perspectives. I truly learned a lot about my city, about the type of people and how they view our city, the things that are important to them. It was, a really eye-opening experience. And I genuinely mean that, and felt like after everyone we talked to, I had come away a little bit more informed about our city. And I just want to thank people for giving us their insights and their perspectives. They were also thoughtful and heartfelt, and everyone we talked to genuinely cared for the city and wanted to participate in making it better. And there's no better way to make your city better than to help influence the general plan. I took so many notes and literally have quotes around some of the things each of you said, because I thought the specific words were so right on when you were, very articulate, and just things that I wanted to remember word for word. I feel fairly certain that through the last week and a half talking to everyone, that we've met some of our future leaders for this city, people who may, and I hope, will eventually be, in our places, hopefully in person and not on a computer screen. And I just thank you for all your efforts and really looking forward to your work over the next couple of years and the progress you're going to make and the contribution you're going to ultimately make to the city. So thanks very much for everybody's efforts and to staff for having pulled this off. This was a heroic effort. I think it was well worth it. The last comment is I think we had talked at some point about not as a full council going through this process. And I just think we all benefited from it. It was hard on staff to manage the logistics of this, but all for the better in the outcome, I believe. So thank you to staff as well.
Councilmember Kick.
Yes, to everything Gina just said. Agreed that was a long week, but I think it was totally worth it. My kids also agree it was worth it because every night mom's at a council meeting, they get to have pizza night. So they would like us to do this more often. So I wanted to, no, we're not going to, Vice Mayor. I wanted to make sure that everybody knows that this, just because you didn't get on the committee doesn't mean that there's not going to be a lot of opportunity to have input on the general plan. And so I really hope that we see all the applicants show up in that space. I do have a question for staff. Is it, in this special meeting, is it possible to have a matters initiated if it's very related to this topic, or must I wait until Monday?
Councilmember Kick, this is your city attorney, Jason. The rules of procedure generally don't provide for matters initiated during a workshop. So we do have a council meeting on Monday, though.
Yep, I'll just wait till Monday. I just wanted to clarify just in case. But this was a great process, and I'm glad to see all of the voices that are in our community, and excited to see the really wide variety and diversity of people that showed up for us. So I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Monroe, and I'm sorry I got the order wrong there, but go ahead, please.
I think that was the correct order, actually. So I am going to be very brief because all who have gone before me have said everything I would have wanted to say. So I could be as brief as ditto, but that seems a little too terse. But the sense of having learned that from everybody that Councilmember Bonanno said, I too put quotes around a whole lot of the pieces that people said. I was the wording, the different life experiences that we were privy to. It was truly a privilege to have been part of this. And I thank each and every one of you for having shared parts of your lives with us. I would echo Councilmember Kick's comments and everyone who's spoken, which is stay engaged. This isn't the only place. There's all kinds of ways to continue to be engaged, and please do. And then to staff, thank you all. The fact that you are willing to go through this regularly, do the heavy lifting, sort of say, okay, we'll get this done somehow to make this community a better place. Emphasis on community a better place, better with that, for everybody. That's part of the reason that's a good part of the reason Livermore is who we are. We do that, this is one example of other times we've done this, and city staff is largely behind this. So I've now gone on way more than ditto. Just thank you all.
Okay, Councilmember Carlin.
Thank you. I could pile on with the thanks, and I know it takes a fair amount of courage sometimes to apply for something like this, and I'm sure it's a little awkward to do interviews on Zoom, but that's the way it is. I do think I'm impressed with the diversity of the folks that we've selected. I think it reflects largely the community, ethnically, racially, young to old, renters, homeowners, and so on. So, and from all parts of the city. So I'm excited about that. And certainly excited to see what the output is over the course of the next few years from this august committee. So again, thank you very much.
So I'll say a few words. I'm, as I said, thoroughly impressed with everybody that applied, and sort of building on what's been said earlier by the other council members. What's really gratifying is to know we've got a superb set of future leaders. And this project is going to go on way longer than many of us might be on the council. And it's really good to know that there are a lot of citizens out there who care and are really capable of guiding this city into the future with a set of, I mean, I heard universally a set of shared values for everybody who applied here. And I think as the question around what's the general plan, and people realized it was a technical document, but it was also spoken to as it represents who we want to be. And so I think that was great. And what I must also say that Councilmember Carling's question about the one word was really illuminating. And people said they had to reflect, and it was clear that on that question and all the others, people had really thought a lot about it and had good things to say. And so very impressed and very, I'm just thrilled for the future of the city based on the advisory committee that we've selected. So with that, unless there are any other comments, we're now adjourning to a regular city council meeting on October 11th, 2021 at 7 p.m. So thank you all.